Better Call Saul is a spin-off series that has exceeded the expectations of its predecessor. For many, it's a prequel delving deeper into the characters from a show that already ended, but for others, Better Call Saul is a more compelling and character-driven story than Breaking Bad. The show provides useful context and lore to many of Saul's lines, like his deflection tactic of oppression, and lures fans in with world-building Easter eggs much more exciting than the SG was here tags that Gene leaves around. I'm here to give you what you're waiting for, and this one's 25 things you missed in Better Call Saul. The intro for Breaking Bad was little more than a title and credit for the show's creator, but the Better Call Saul intros foreshadow Gene's story. In the pilot, we see Gene in black and white reminiscing through his commercials. It's worth noting that he both watches these on VHS, which deteriorate in quality over time, and in color, as seen in the reflection of his glasses. There are 10 distinct sequences created from new footage, as well as archival footage from Breaking Bad. These deteriorate in the same order each season until the final one, where the last 3 episodes include footage from Gene Takovic's world rather than Saul Goodman's. The differences in cinematography between Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are numerous, but if you look closer, there are actually more similarities than there aren't at first glance. While most of Breaking Bad made use of a shoulder rig photography style, the Jimmy McGill sequences of Better Call Saul prefer tripod shots. Although we do get the occasional Breaking Bad angle, well known for placing the camera inside of an object, giving viewers a seemingly impossible view of the subject. A majority of the Gene Takovic sequences, however, retain the style of Breaking Bad, both with shoulder rig cinematography and the iconic mundane time-lapse. This is to let them fit into the Breaking Bad timeline, as well as symbolize how the crime drama has completely taken over the legal drama in Jimmy's life. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul overlap more than lead into each other, because the tremendous impact the events of Breaking Bad have on Jimmy are as much the story as his origin.
I was about to make partner at my law firm and I quit for Chalk.
This did, however, leave audiences a little lost when piecing together the timeline. Breaking Bad begins in September of 2008, and the episode titled Better Call Saul takes place on December 4th, 2008. All of the post-Breaking Bad sequences take place in 2010, including El Camino, making the Gene sequences the farthest point in the timeline. For reference, the conversation between Jesse and Kim takes place in 2004, well before Breaking Bad, and the conversation with Francesca takes place on November 12, 2010, an entire month after El Camino. The entirety of Jimmy's origin in Better Call Saul takes place from 2002 to 2004, and he is arrested in December of 2010. In the final season of Better Call Saul, viewers were given a lot of information regarding the years before the beginning of Breaking Bad. After getting Saul to sign the divorce papers, it's revealed in a conversation with Jesse that Kim represented Combo while still in practice. By this point, Kim is no longer a lawyer, and with her out of the picture, Jimmy is not the second best, but the world's greatest lawyer. Emilio's appearance sets up Jesse telling Walt that Saul helped Emilio get out of serious legal trouble twice. The damage that Gus does to the Salamanca family during Better Call Saul leaves a power vacuum that is filled by gangs like the Espinozas and Crazy Eight's crew. While remaining an informant, Domingo begins acquiring his own territory with Emilio as manufacturer. He gains prominence by ratting on his competitors and taking their territory afterward. Lalo's impact on the show's characters and fans is no aspect worth missing out on. While a lot of his popularity comes from his dashing good looks, actor Tony Dalton attributes it to the realism he brought to the character. Breaking Bad was often criticized for its all-white writing staff and actors' mispronunciations. Spanish-speaking audiences felt detached from the show because lines were written in English and later translated to Spanish, which neither the writers nor actors were fluent in. In an interview, Dalton shared that he often offered alternative lines that felt like more slangy translations. According to legend, this gave birth to the on-set joke Better Call Lalo, once writers realized the changes were a good direction for the character and his fan base. Season 6 is the only one that doesn't open with a black and white flash forward to 2010. Instead, it subverts audience expectations with a montage of seized paraphernalia. The mansion belongs to Saul, and while this is the first time we are seeing it, any avid viewer can spot the slew of items from the show. Saul's director had several leftover pairs of fancy mall walking shoes, and most importantly, the Black Book. A few episodes later, Dr. Caldera tells Saul he is looking to sell the Black Book and get out of the game. This detail provides a lot of context into how Jimmy bridges the gap between cartel lawyer and Albuquerque con man. The last item to be revealed is the Zafiro bottle top, symbolizing once again the dangerous nature of Kim and Saul's relationship. Before Jimmy is forced to say goodbye face-to-face with Hamlin, he and Kim are watching Born Yesterday. This movie is about a corrupt lawyer that convinces a couple to get married so they can't testify against each other in court, an obvious reference to Kim and Jimmy. When Howard is knocking at the door, Jimmy calls him Max Schmeling, the only boxer to win a heavyweight championship on a foul. After entering the room, Howard calls the two scammers Leopold and Loeb because they hurt him just for fun and games. His insult is a reference to a pair of criminals who committed acts of violence just for the thrill of it. Howard Hamlin is the only main character not to survive Better Call Saul that didn't take himself out. While both Kaylee and Stacy originally appeared in the third season of Breaking Bad, the Ehrmantrout family has expanded to include a number of characters in grief counseling sessions and a lot more pop-pop time. As details surrounding Maddie's passing and Mike's revenge are revealed through flashbacks, Maddie Ehrmantrout is cast next to the gentle fatherly giant that is young Mike. When given the time machine question, Mike initially makes reference to an incident we never saw in a flashback. Mike loses Maddie in August of 2001 and doesn't avenge him until March of 2002. If the time machine is a metaphor for regret, December 8, 2001 might be the day he chose revenge, the day he broke bad. Season 6 is divided by titles that follow an X and Y format and titles that are plays on words. The first arc of the season finishes up Jimmy's transformation into Saul Goodman, and the back half wraps up Gene Takovic. Nippy is both a reference to Gene's fictional dog and the temperature outside. Breaking Bad is a meta reference to the show, The Cancer Man, Saul Breaking Bad, and that breaking and entering is bad. Waterworks is a reference to Kim's place of work, her bus breakdown, and the last space on the Monopoly board before go to jail. The finale, which wraps up Jimmy's story, is titled Saul Gone as a nod to the story ending, but also because Jimmy finally makes the tough decision to pay for his crimes in the justice system. As a result, Saul is gone. Saul Gone has 3 flashback sequences to conversations with key influencers in Jimmy's past. Each of the situations have to do with water in different ways. In the first, Mike and Jimmy find water during their time in the desert. In the second, Walt is trying to fix the hot water. And in the third, Jimmy is bringing frozen water to Chuck. There is also a reference to time travel in each of the flashbacks, although in the second one it is just Chuck's copy of the time machine, which we also see Jimmy reading earlier in the season. The final memory with Chuck flashes back to May 12, 2002, the day right before the pilot episode. In the flashback, Jimmy says the newsstand will start carrying the Financial Times tomorrow, and in the pilot, Jimmy brings the Financial Times after it has been added to the newsstand. After the conclusion of Jimmy's transformation into Saul, fans were given new perspectives on old plot points. With Saul's line blaming Ignacio for Lalo's death in Breaking Bad, it's revealed that Jesse had never heard of Lalo, and that Saul was trying to get Walt in his pocket. Waterworks gave backstory to lines about Emilio from the same episode, but the flashbacks in Saul Gone revealed which 3 characters made the biggest impact throughout Jimmy's journey. At each flashback, he is recalling these people in ways that will help him survive. Gene draws on Mike to help him keep going when running from the cops. Saul calls on Walt for some way to weasel out of responsibility, and Jimmy remembers Chuck to finally accept that he needs to change his path. There is also a valve, spout, or something plumbing related in each of the flashback scenes in Saul Gone. In the flashback with Walt, the watch he looks over at is the gift from Jesse from his 51st birthday. When Saul is being taken by plane to North Carolina, he is flying with Wayfarer, the fictional airline company known for the Wayfarer 515 aircraft collision that occurs at the end of Breaking Bad's 2nd season. ADX Montrose is also fictional, based off of ADX Florence, which actually is known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. When Gene uses his first phone call to let the Cinnabon know about his absence, it feels slightly reminiscent of Gustavo's call to Lyle after being shot by Lalo. The finger guns are a recurring theme in Better Call Saul, and the series ends with Saul Goodman giving one last slow gesture to Kim before she turns the corner. Each time the finger guns are used before diving headfirst into a scheme. Jimmy jumps into Saul Goodman and Kim jumps into Hamlin's assassination. But this time the message is less destructive, as both Kim and Jimmy have now decided to take responsibility for the wrongdoings of their past. When they share a last cigarette together, a bit of color returns to Jimmy's life. Literally. Before now, the only color in the post-Breaking Bad sequences have been the Saul Goodman ads, but the cherry on the routine shared cigarette is undoubtedly orange. Saul buys the keys to the castle, taking Dr. Caldera's spot as criminal contact. This means that people like Mike, who used to go to Dr. Caldera for work, now go to Saul. This is how he gains access to useful assets like Jimmy In-N-Out and Ed the Disappearer. All of Ed Galbraith's scenes in Better Call Saul were actually shot during production for El Camino. The premiere of Season 5 is dedicated to Robert Forster because unfortunately he passed away in 2019 before the episode aired. With Better Call Saul, we got to see origins for characters like Huell Babineau, but due to scheduling conflicts, Bill Burr was unable to reprise his role as Patrick Cuby. They did, however, give ample backstory to Ira, who you'll remember as the owner of Vominos Pest Control, Saul's meth lab cover-up business in Season 5 of Breaking Bad. Jonathan Banks plays one of the most tender-hearted and caring characters in the Breaking Bad universe. Each time he has to help a fan favorite out of a moment in crisis, we see his perfect composure and an almost dad-like responsibility to help people get out of a bad situation. While Mike doesn't survive 2010, Better Call Saul explored the character's motivations and developed his more James Bond-like qualities. Throughout the show, we see Mike use and reuse gadgets like the Smith & Wesson Performance Center, also known as the Competitor, and the tracking device he stores with it. Neither the Competitor or the Remington rifle he buys from Lawson are in Breaking Bad, but Mike's familiarity with the M40 has led some people to believe he might have served in Vietnam. Kim's D-Day schemes are neatly organized with colorful sticky notes, a callback to when she is secretly acquiring clients for HHM. There are 9 columns, each representing a stage of the plan leading up to the final boom. The notes below them represent the steps for each part of the plan. In order, they are the Baggy and Hamlin's locker at the golf course, the Kettlemans and Carrot and Stick, with Stengel being the stick, the scheme with Wendy, the fake private investigator, the Sandpiper case with the instrument representing Viola, the surveillance photos, the effects the drug receiver from Dr. Caldera has on Hamlin, and the last column stands in for the information extraction that Francesca is forced to help with. The type of puzzle Jimmy and Kim use here is a rebus. Every Gene sequence has a subtle reference to slipperiness. Whether it's slipping and falling, slipping away, giving him the slip, slipping up, slippery one outside, or slipping him a Jimmy, it's all a reference to Saul's past. The reason Chuck spins the soda can is probably less wisdom and more protection after years of being pranked by Slippin Jimmy. Jimmy is never able to pull the trigger. He doesn't harm Marion, can't hurt the Cancer Man, and never even reaches for a weapon during the shootout against the Espinosa gang. When Saul suggests removing Hank from the picture, he covertly refers to it as sending him to Belize. This is referenced in a scene of Bingo when Jimmy calls B as in Belize.
Beautiful place, so I've heard.
When Walt first becomes Heisenberg, he quickly settles on a number that he feels will be enough to provide for his family long after his departure. That number is $737,000. When Gene's crew begins picking people for their identity fraud scam, Gene searches for a mark with perfect circumstances. When going through the financial documents for their final victim, Gene comes across a bank statement indicating an account with $737,000 in it. In so many ways, this man is the perfect mark for their scam and for Saul's revenge, with watches, cigars, and even the coveted Coco Bolo desk. One of the things AMC does best is pump out bonus content. During the height of Breaking Bad, there were campaigns hosted by fan favorites, like Saul Goodman I Fight For You ads, which are then referenced in Better Call Saul. As Better Call Saul built up, AMC produced a slew of primarily cartoon web series with the premise of employee training. There are webisodes for Gus, Mike, Kim, and the newest is Filmmaker Training with the University of New Mexico film students. The Breaking Bad cartoon universe continued with Slippin Jimmy, an homage to different movie genres from black and white slapstick to westerns and horror. While Better Call Saul is littered with familiar faces in comedy like the kid lawyer from 30 Rock, the Gene sequences have given the opportunity for a few more familiar faces to hit the stage. One of the first marks chosen in the episode titled Breaking Bad is Alfred, played by Devin Ratray, who was in the movie titled Nebraska with Bob Odenkirk. It's a comedy film shot in black and white, so there's no irony lost there. Kevin Sussman you'll recognize from The Big Bang Theory, but Carol Burnett is easily the most notable addition to the Omaha scene. Like Bob Odenkirk, Carol Burnett was the star of a comedy variety show. Mr. Show with Bob and David lasted 4 seasons in the mid-90s, and the Carol Burnett Show spanned 12 years from the mid-60s to the late 70s. In its final moments, the series' driving forces have each taken a large handful of the responsibility in wrapping up the story. The final 3 episodes were the first of the season to be written and directed by a single auteur. The series finale was written and directed by Peter Gould, Waterworks by Vince Gilligan, and the episode Breaking Bad was written and directed by Thomas Scnauz. The extra sharp Wisconsin cheddar from Scnauz Farms is a reference to this Breaking Bad veteran, and Alfred's investment firm report is a reference to Better Call Saul producer and Cherkis. Within the universe, Mesa Verde is the same credit union Walt uses to finance the Crystal Ship. Gus has stated throughout the series that Pollo Hermano's chicken is fresh, never frozen. When he has to destroy his restaurant, he pulls the only frozen chicken out of the cooler. The scientific accuracy is irrelevant here, but basically if you drop a frozen chicken into a really hot deep fryer, it causes an explosion. This phenomenon is a common household accident around Thanksgiving, so theoretically if the chicken was still plenty frozen to cause the hot oil to react but thawed enough to slide down the pan, it would probably work. Especially since Nacho left the gas on for so long. You know the worst part of it all? Pollo Hermano's chicken is batter fried, so fresh, never frozen or not, it's still not competing with Kentucky Fried. Now that Better Call Saul has ended, fans are wondering what's next for the universe. Gilligan has mentioned his feelings of conclusion with the project, and Gould has registered similar sentiments with less finality. In an interview, Gould mentioned that there are a number of characters that could have their own show, rattling off a few like Hank Schrader and Hector Salamanca. To be honest, I can foresee a true prequel starring Giancarlo Esposito and Mark Margulies set entirely in Mexico. Gilligan and Gould co-created Better Call Saul. Who's to say Gould and Scnauz won't co-create the next spinoff? Better ding fring. Now that it's all out, we're likely to get another full cut like Breaking_Bad the movie, but until then you can go back and rewatch it all to count every instance of Moray.